How's it going, folks? I'm Matthew. This is the Morris Cards, and today we're talking about the Steel City Spectacular, the largest cEDH event ever. No asterisk next to it, just over 500 players all in the same room, happening the same time that the Top Deck Invitational that I covered last week. We got a little bit of a teaser of this event there, and I really did want to just talk about this one because I know the Invitational has definitely gotten a lot more shine, I think, though a lot of people have pointed to this event and it has some pretty cool stuff going on. We looked at it a little bit last week, but I did want to give this one the full highlight because there is more here to talk about, I think, than the Invitational with its almost all Tymna Kraum metagame. But here we have a lot of different decks, and of course we are missing those players from the Invitational. Honestly, I would kind of like next year for these events to get segmented to where we aren't having this push for the biggest event ever at the same time when it means we have to exclude the best players. I really would just want these things to mix or be separate. And, you know, maybe 500 player events is just the thing we're going to see more of, hopefully. Cool stuff happening at this meta, and I'm excited to get to talk about it. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below which of these deck lists were your favorites. I am having a new structure and schedule for this channel. Main uploads will be on Fridays, and I'll be doing extra uploads sometimes throughout the week, probably on Wednesday, maybe Mondays, depending on, you know, what went down. Those would be more focused on like events, stuff that's more timely. All that being said, though, let's go ahead and hop into it. Use the link in the description below to download Whatnot, and you'll get $15 to use to buy Magic singles, sealed product, get anything that you want, really. There's no limits. You just get $15 on the account for free just for signing up. Use the link in the description below. Give Whatnot a try. First up, we got the metagame breakdown. Now, if you looked last week, you saw the Invitational metagame breakdown, which was Tymna Kraum. Quite popular here too. Not quite the 29%, 28%, something like that. But we still do have 73 entries. Now, again, this is a 500 plus player event, right? So these conversion rate numbers are going to be way off of what you're normally expecting. I did hear some people having some complaints or at least some feedback that they would like a larger cut to top 32 or top 40 because it is such a massive event. It makes sense to maybe double or even more the top cut. Decks like Kefka and Lumra, Ral, stuff like that didn't quite make the cut. But for this event, it was just top 16. But we have still a lot of TNKs, 4 of them making it still. So still 25% of the meta for the top 16 that we're going to be looking at. Good bit of Rog Thrases, but not really a great weekend for Rog Thras. Same with Rog Sai, really. 0 making the Envy, 1 making it here. But then some other decks that we don't get to talk about as often, like Crick, Inalla, Rocco, Glarb, Chatterfang, Halana, and then other decks that didn't make it. Kefka was quite popular and just barely missed out. TNT, not a single one making it to the event, despite being decently popular at least. Lumra being 14 entries, kind of sick. Yuriko's, Terra's, big drop off, and then just lots of 1s, 2s, and 3s of tons of different decks because you have such a massive pool of players you're pulling from. At 16th place, first deck we're going to be talking about is Chatterfang. I've covered one of these, I think, within the past couple months and was really excited about it. I don't know if this is the same player, but that player responded to me and told me that that deck was bad, but hey, here we got it again. So Chatterfang itself is a enabler for some token related combos. Obviously token synergies are quite powerful with it, and it is having that black ability to remove stuff as well as get sacrifice triggers. So it does just provide a lot in just kind of wonky colors, right? We don't tend to see lots of Golgari decks really have much shine here in cEDH. So at the low CMCs for our creatures, we've got a bunch of mana dorks, including Gilded Goose, fan favorite, which also makes a token, notably. Disciple of the Vault, which can be an outlet to kill players if we're making infinite clues, treasures, and foods or something with Academy Manufactor. As we move up the curve, we see Dark Confidant, Bowmasters, Nantuko, which has become just a staple of green decks really in general. Really cool, kind of appealing card in Fiend Artisan for Golgari plus decks. That was a staple in the sort of hermit piles that we would see a few years ago, but has the ability to tap and then spend X and Golgari hybrid mana, sack another creature, and you search your library for a creature with mana cost X or less. So you could spend 3 mana, sack a creature, go get a 2-drop because you have to spend that 1 Golgari mana. So really similar to like a fair birthing pod that has more flexibility but doesn't cheat on mana. And it is also harder to interact with it being a creature. The Academy Manufactor we mentioned, which is going to go really well with lots of artifact synergies with stuff like Warren Soul Trader making treasures. We have Tithe Extractor, Pitiless Plunderer, also doing that. And Paragon Took. We are also a Protean Hulk deck. So we have Activated Sleeper, which is a really common thing with Protean Hulk decks, where normally we might just get our full line together. Like if we have a Sacrifice Outlet, like Warren Soul Trader. This lets you do that plus go get your Dosen first and get Activated Sleeper, has it enter as a Protean Hulk, so you have protection and another Protean Hulk line that you get to put together. Also can let you kind of double dip for lines where there's some weirdness or something got removed or you don't have access to anymore. Spirit Guides, Oppo, and then more of the token shenanigans with Paragon. Ruthless Knave, which has 2 in a black, sacrifice a creature, create 2 colorless artifact treasure tokens, and then you can sacrifice 3 treasures and draw a card. So if you are able to make infinite treasures, then you can draw a card. This, when we make those treasures, we also make squirrels. So we're gonna make 2 squirrels and 2 treasures. You can start to see the overlapping of being able to make more material, and then we can like sacrifice a squirrel to make a treasure with Soul Trader. This is one I haven't seen in these kind of decks, but it makes a lot of sense. It's not a tap ability. You get to keep doing it, so that's pretty cool. And then Pitiless Plunderer, staple of these sort of decks. Creature dies, you get a treasure. Oh man, I wonder what we're gonna do with that. We have Tithe Extractor, which is another thing to generate material, but also get some value. Tosita, draw cards, and then Protean Hulk to assemble lines. I like that we get to do stuff where we net infinite treasures, but we're gonna lose life slightly faster than we make treasures. So we have to like crack food and basically just net a mana. Like we make 3 treasures, lose 3 life, spend 2 of those to buy back the life. That's kind of cool. Sorceries, kind of stuff you'd expect in these Golgari piles. Reanimation effects, tutors, the big creature tutors, Besiege, Grim Tutor, Culling Ritual, best Golgari card, right? Or one of. Okay, we got some cool stuff here. Got Summoner's Pact, Quick Reflexes, Entomb, Royal Treatment. I think we've seen a couple of times before, which is target creature you control gains Hexproof, so it's a protection spell. And then you create a Royal Roll token, which gives them +1/+1 and Ward 1, so that kind of gives them a little bit of protection throughout the game. Savage Summoning is really cool. It gives a creature flash and can't be countered, and it itself can't be countered. So it can really help you break through those sort of mid-rangey board states. Other protective pieces, disruptive cards, Saw in Half, Rollick, Force, and then Shared Summons. That's pretty sick. Search your library for 2 creature cards, put them in your hand, instant speed. Artifacts, just got some fast mana. Skull Clamp, gonna be great with our Squirrel token deck, right? Vexing Bauble as another piece of protection, and Conqueror's Flail, so a couple of those types of things. And we are in the One Ring as well. And then enchantments, we've got Earthcraft, Meat Hook Massacre, sick, and it's another potential way to just kill everybody. Again, if you take control of the board in those creature mirror matches, and then Pattern of Rebirth, put it on a creature. You can put it on a squirrel, sack it, and then go get your Protean Hulk, Invasion of Mycoria, and then 27 lands. We're in the Dryad Arbor, Phyrexian Tower, Saga, Yavimaya, and Urborg. A deck that continues to be on the fringes of what we've seen, but has a spectacular showing at this massive event, and a good record as well. I mean, hard to discredit that. That's pretty sick. Then we got our first of 4 Tymna Kroms. You know we do these ones a little bit quicker. I will say this creature package looks a little different. Creature counts have gone up for these decks overall, and I would say that there's been a little bit more diversity among them, and we kind of have seen like what you choose to prioritize as a value 2-drop. So here we're on the 1-drops you kind of expect. We're on Drannith Magistrate, which is not popular for these decks at all right now. Flame Scroll Celebrant, which we mostly know for its inclusion in the Mardu decks, and it includes a Silence on the backside for 2 mana. Abolisher, Bowmaster, Historical, Voice we expect. And then we are on Oppo, Flood Caller, and Stormcome Artist, which we've seen pop up in some of these decks. Some Rog size can be super powerful as like a proactively slanted Smothering Tithe when you slam this thing and then pass, and while you're interacting and people are triggering your draw engines, you're netting mana, and it can help you keep firing off what you need to. Sorcery is pretty low, no Mean Bet, no Grasp, and no Wheel, but we are on a Git Probe, and then the couple tutors, no Diabolic Intent again. 34 instants. We're on Dispel, Offer, we're on Orm's Chant, which usually when you see the Revel and Silence, you'll see that one as well. Both the Red Blast. Okay, we're really going up on it, huh? Disrupting Shoal as pitch spell interaction. Permission Denied, which is a Silence stapled onto a 2-mana counter spell. Limdol's Vault is a top deck tutor. Fire Covenant, and then Commandeer. So really leaning into this holding up interaction, and we're not nosing, which makes sense when you have like Commandeers right as a 7-drop in your deck. So no Nos, no Necro. So we're not using the, so like this is a really defensive use of these silences, which of course they get to be offensive anyways too, right? But when you see this much like pitch spell interaction, they're really wanting to sit around and play the control game and use like a Gifts or an Intuition the same way you would use a Ad Nauseam to fire off instant speed wins when the coast is clear. Relatively low artifact count. We've got the fast mana, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Wish Claw, no, the One Ring. We are an Imposter Mech, though, is another clone option. And then 7 enchantments, you know, really liking the copy artifact, seal enchantment type thing. No Mirror Maid and no copy enchantment here, but we do have an Amphibian Downpour, which having a couple answers to these creature decks, which is all we've seen so far, right? And then 26 lands, so like one shorter or lower than you might normally expect. We are on a Surveil land, 2 Surveil lands actually. No Mistrise Village, none of that. Next up, we got Glarb the Frog, which has been really popular, was quite popular when it came out. It's on a little bit of a downtick lately where it hasn't been quite performing as well, and other options that are just kind of appealing other people have been playing. Here we've got it, and it looks like we're maybe more of a lands focus with Azusa, which is something we have seen. So we've got Mana Dorks, Bloom Tender, Fairy Mastermind, Thoracle, Oppo, the Valley Flood Caller are super powerful synergy in this deck, but we're also doing the High Fate Trickster as a flash enabler. We've got the Azusa for extra land drops. Glarb does let you play lands off the top, so it can be like really good draw value. We might also be on exploration, we'll see. Then we've got Notion Thief, Seedborn Muse, Wandering Archaic, and Consecrated Sphinx as higher end parts of the curve for Glarb, as well as Clever Impersonator, but that one's just becoming like fairly popular as another option to be like a Mirror Maid style effect. Sorcerers run the Scheming Symmetry. We are not a Doomsday gamer, but I love Scheming Symmetry in Glarb. Any kind of deck that lets you take advantage of Scheming Symmetry is nice. Then the rest is Tutors, Mean Bet, Yawgmoth's Will here as well. No wheel effects, so really just fueling this with playing the game and glarbing, you know. Instance, we got 23, Noxious Revival showing you here, which does feel great in Glarb. We're on the Abrupt Decay here as well. Born Upon a Wind, so 3 Flash Enablers so far, and we're not a Crop Rot deck, so maybe not on the Emergent Zone, I'm guessing. We're on Limdal's Vault, which feels better there. Misdirection is another piece of pitch interaction. Very interactive, no Naws. Are we Necrowing? We'll take a look. Yeah, we are. It makes sense. Artifacts, relative, you know, a little bit higher on the count. Got our normal fast mana, the 5 color-ish rocks. Sensei's Top, which feels pretty good. We're also on the Aetherflux Reservoir top combo with Bolus's Citadel, One Ring, Grim Monolith to help power out some of the stuff we are on Wishclaw. And then enchantments, we are on that Exploration, also on Wild Growth. Counterbalance, which can feel pretty sick and is pretty good with top, as you know. Necropotence, really powerful combo with Glarb, or just synergy, really, I guess. It can be combo-like if you have lots and lots of mana. And then Rhystic Study. 29 lands, so you want to be on the higher side. This is honestly probably a little low for exploration. Azusa decks traditionally, but when you also get like 3 looks off the top to hit extra land drops, it gives you a little bit extra leeway. We are on the Mistrise Village here. Manamo is another utility land and Shifting Woodland. 17 creatures, and we weren't a Cradle deck, question mark? I don't believe so. So you're right at the point where it feels kind of whatever. Glarb, typically one of the hardest parts of this deck, a lot of times is just getting the engine set up, and you really want your lands to work. And when they can't help you cast like your Glarb or your turn 1 dork, it does feel kind of bad, so I don't blame him for that. Next up, we've got Yoshi Thras. So we've got the 3 dorks, Esper, Mockingbird, pretty much all the 1-drops that are like slam dunks usually. Some people are often on Halfling. It usually gets more targets for that legendary uncounterability in Yoshi Thras than it does Rog. We got Biomancer's Familiar, Cloud of Fairies, Fairy Mastermind, looking really Breeze Caller, Fimage, and Flesh Stupid's Clone, Spellskite. So one thing that we've seen in some of the Yoshi Thras decks, and in general the Cradle-y decks, though a lot of the Rog Thras players haven't started doing these, and when I've tested them, they were just okay. But when you have Deceiver, Exarch, and Pestermite also as untappers, and then this list is on Peregrine Drake, which at this point you've probably seen some of the Rog Thrases do that I've covered, and then also the Japanese like Peregrine Drake, Great Whale style of decks. But it's, I think, more of a thing that has value in these versions of the list because you have things like Emil that let them combo. Like, you know, unlike Cloud of Fairies, they're like more and they untap less. So they're not usually as high value, although having flash can be quite nice, and there's some extra utility on their abilities. The like ability to flicker them just gives you more combo applications because you just need a cradle count of 4 with a meal in one of these to go infinite, which is very, very low ask. Although unlike Cloud of Fairies, they're not that likely to give you like a cradle untap and the blue mana to cast another one. They are essentially free-ish spells, and it's the type of thing we've seen in especially the Yoshi Thras builds. And then don't be surprised if you see something like this in a Rock Thras, especially with like Peregrine Drake. We are on the Displacer Kitten. There is no Oculus here, which is kind of common in the Yoshi Thras decks. Microspawn, Clone, Seedborn. Sorceries, we've got kind of the staple-y ones up top here. Wargate is a nice one that Yoshi Thras gets access to. Reap and Sow is what Sowing Microspawn is based off of. This is a card that we've seen some Rog Thrases mess with, other similar Cradle-focused decks. It is about the same rate. It's a little bit worse than Microspawn because it's easier to interact with. It also doesn't increase the Cradle count on its own. It's one of those things where if you want another 4 mana, find a Cradle, and you don't want to play like Tempt with Discovery, you can play Reap and Sow. And then Rally the Galadrim is one that I wasn't aware of until like going into this weekend, and I was taking a look at some of the deck lists. And that's 4 mana, 2 green blue, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and it has Conspire, which means as you cast this spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control that share a color with it. When you do, copy it, and you may choose a new target for the copy. So for instance, if you have Yoshi, Thrasios, and then, you know, like a Cloud of Fairies, you can tap Thrasios and a Cloud of Fairies, cast this spell targeting your Cloud of Fairies, and then you'll make a copy of it because you can Conspire it, and you can make 2 Cloud of Fairies. So it is very high impact. I think more often than not, this will be able to Conspire. In the early turns where you're having to use a dork to do it and maybe you haven't developed your Thrasios, might be a little bit more awkward. It might be more of a win more type of card. It being harder to interact with is something I really like in these kind of decks if you are going to do an effect like this that's a clone, because if you get 2 of them, especially if you copy it and you choose 2 different targets, it's very hard to disrupt the whole thing. I actually like it, and this is a piece of tech that I'm interested in seeing more of. Again, awkward with dorks and the dork enabling effects. Doesn't really scale that well with those, but it's kind of similar to like a Court of Calling, where sometimes it doesn't line up with those, but overall it might actually still be quite worth it. Instance, we've got the Enlightened Tutor, Crop Rot, Louisoix Sacrifice is here. Born Upon a Wind is a flash enabler. Snap, Cord, the Forces, no blue flare. White doesn't have a good flare, unfortunately. We are on Will of the Mardu, which we've seen some of these decks play. I think I saw more of it like when they initially started building the Cradle versions. I haven't seen as much of it lately, but it's a pretty cool card. 2 and a white, choose one. If you control a commander, you just cast it. Choose both. Create a number of 1/1 red warrior creature tokens equal to the number of creatures target player controls, and then you can deal damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. Play this. Somebody has 3 creatures. You make 3 1/1s, and then you can deal like whatever, 3 to 6 to 100, however many creatures you have, damage to a creature. Nice answer to potential problematic creatures on the board, like a Bowmasters, maybe an opposition agent sometimes. That also can help you develop your Cradle count, something that you can pass holding up, and having that flexibility of just like amping up my board state and I'm picking off a problematic card can be quite nice. Just another thing that the white decks get access to. Artifacts just on 7, no One Ring, just the fast mana Candelabra. Enchantments, we've got Mystic Remora, Nature's Chosen, which is, you know, one of the big appeals of this deck. Training Grounds, Growing Rights, Ristic, and Smothering Tithe. These are all pretty much staples of this deck. And then Urban Burgeoning, this is a card that some of the Cradle Thras decks have been kind of like messed with in and out of. I think I've put it in my deck like a handful of times. I think it was one of those cards mainly where I just picked up a Japanese foil of it like 8 months ago or something, like start of the year, just because it looked like it was playable. It's kind of similar to Nature's Chosen, where if you're set up, it's quite good. Although Nature's Chosen has the I'm spinning my wheels and I get to do more this turn effect, whereas Urban Burgeoning is closer to like a Seaborn Muse at Home type effect. It's 1 green, enchant land. Enchanted land has untap this land during each other player's untap step. The ideal use of it is you put it on your Gaia's Cradle. Gaia's Cradle untap on their turn. Use it to activate Thrasios. This deck develops just like a hair slower than Rogthras. This card definitely lends itself way more to the Thrasios pass kind of game plan, and it not being good at developing. If you replace this with like Wild Growth is really good in the early turns, whereas Urban Burgeoning, probably not very. But it has really high upside into the mid to late game. So it is an interesting card to think about in your Cradle Thras decks. But it's cool to see it at this event. I'm curious if it actually like came into play. Invasion of Mycoria, and then we have the 28 lands, Dryad Arbor, Deserted Temple, Cradle, Manamo, Talon Gates. I don't think any other utility stuff. Looking like a pretty clean mana base. Yoshi Thras being a true 3-color deck doesn't usually get the free roll of like adding Earthcraft to your deck, but also cards like Shifting Woodland and Mistraz Village, I think I'm starting to be on the mindset that they're bait and they're making our mana bases bad. And I'm really liking seeing lists that aren't running them, or at least are testing without running quite as many utility lands. Then we got the second Tymna Kraum of the event. Here we're on the Dragon's Rage Channeler. We're on Tataru Taru, which is when it enters, you draw a card and target opponent may draw a card. When opponent draws a card, if it's not their turn, you make a tap treasure. Triggers only once each turn. Basically, a lot of people compare this to Lotho. You can think of it kind of similarly. So we're on that, as well as Professional Facebreaker. We saw this as a little bit of a package also in the Invitational, along with cards like Mayhem Devil, other things that can take advantage of your treasures. Here in the sorceries, we do got a Rite of Flame as a ritual, and then we have Deluge to answer some of the creature decks, and Intent, still no wheel, no mean bet, no Praetor's Grasp, something like that. Instance, we got the Coin of the Week, Cabal Ritual. So this one is definitely an Oz deck. We're still on the gifts, but we're leaning a little bit more proactive than the last one, right? We got the Final Fortune. Seeing Final Fortune Born makes me think we're probably a Necro deck as well. We are. So you can see the slight package differences between the different T and Ks. Here's landing a little bit more proactive. We don't have like the Orm's Chant, which is a little bit better at being defensive. Defensive in the sense of I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to keep us alive. We are in the gifts as well as the intuition though, so Nos count might be a little bit higher, but we got stuff to make mana. Fast mana, mana rocks. We are on Mox Opal, which is starting to become a little bit less of a staple, but you see Mopal, Grinding Station, Grim Monolith. You know, we're just landing it a little bit, speed it up like half a turn, you know? And then enchantments, Mystic, Ristic, Breach, Smothering Tithe, the Necro, staples, classic. Cavern of Souls, I'm gonna expect no Mistrise and no Surveillance. If we don't have any, we have Starting Town as another 5-color land. Honestly, if I was playing TNK, it's probably looking like this, landing a little bit quicker. I don't really like Dispel, but that's me personally. But yeah, a TNK list that's landing a little bit more proactive, but still having to make some considerations for what's popular in the metagame with cards like Toxic Deluge. Next, we got Ezio Auditore de Firenze. I might cut that. It's Ezio. This is the second deck I looked at that's got a freaking Rogue in there, and I don't know why. Because I know Ian's Kefka deck also had Rogue. Is this a glitch? No, I looked at his Mox Field, so it's definitely not a glitch. So Ezio is a 2-mana 5-color commander. For 1 and a black, you get a Menace 3/2 Assassin with Assassin spells you cast have free running black. There are no assassins in this deck. Mostly this is flavor text, and he's just the most castable 5-color commander, and the format being 2 mana with only 1 pip versus cards like Jinsen and the Nagilos, a lot of the 3-drop ones. Basically no text at all. He's just a 2-drop that gives you 5 colors. And we're on Cloud with him. So we've got 1 mana dork and Deathrite Shaman, which is a pretty interesting single choice. It does have more survivability than your Birds of Paradise. Rograk, which I don't know what he's here for. We'll figure it out. Ragavan Esper. Then we have Cloud Midgar Mercenary, which is not really quite popped off in cEDH, but is a powerful card. For 2 white, he enters, you search for equipment, put it in your hand, and as long as he's equipped, if an ability of Cloud or an equipment attached to him triggers, it triggers additional time. Mostly known with his synergy for like Skull Clamp, being able to find it, and then Skull Clamp draws you 4 cards when Cloud dies. That's good with Rog, I guess. Lotho, Bowmasters, Taru, Thoracle, and then Voice of Victory. So this looks kind of similar to some of the 5-color lists I've seen that really try not to get too goofy with the extra pips in trying to fit Ranger Captains and Grand Abolishers and all that together. I see the Cloud over there. You don't have to point it out. But if we're going to run Cloud, it's tough to run that alongside all these other extra white cards. But when we're not maybe that heavy white, we'll see what the rest of the deck looks like. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those ones that like doesn't play Auto War. So sorceries. All right, we're leaning quick. This is a turbo deck. Git Probe, Imp Seal, Infernal Plunge, Rite of Flame, Jessica's Will. I love a good 5-color Jessica's Will off a 2-mana commander. Warrior's Oath, so we're going quick. 3 wheels, Meme Bet, Besiege the Mirror Color. So far looking like a true 5-color turbo kind of Rogsai style deck. Curious about the creature selection still, but okay, it looks to be what we're doing so far. Counter spells, Misstep, Fluster, 1 red blast, Born, Final Fortune, Gifts, Gnaws, and Intuition. Just a regular silence. Okay, nothing too stand out here. Looks like 5-color turbo-y stuff. A lot of these kind of decks run Offer and use it as a ritual. 18 artifact. I bet we're yep, we're a Grinding Station deck. I knew it. 5th grade Grinding Station, Springleaf Drum. We are doing Skull Clamp. Paradise Mantle is another equipment. Okay, a little bit of overlap there. So is it that Rog, you want a 0/1 because it's easier to Skull Clamp it, and then you get to plunge. So just giving you more bodies, I guess. I could see like if there were more of these things, like if you had like 3 of these guys, and then maybe that's too many. It's still really interesting. There's no like Flare of Dupe to also take advantage of them. So that's still a really interesting pick so far. Fast mana, Wishclaw Talisman, no Wondering. Enchantments, no Necropotence, but we're on Mystic and Heuristic Study. Oh, this is a freaking Luris deck, and it's at the bottom, isn't it? Or just top deck not know? Top deck just doesn't know. This is definitely a Luris deck. Okay, I should have mentioned that at the start, that there's part of the things with those decks is there's sometimes Luris decks. This is definitely one of those times. Okay, so yeah, Mystic, Copy Artifact, Steel Enchantment, Breach. And then 26 lands, Gemstone Mine, City of Traders, Plateau, Spire, Starting Town, Urza Saga. So that gives us... like the Skull Clamp's not that good, right? Like in terms of like we're not building the deck around that. You have a decent amount of like you just don't have that many creatures. So Cloud gives you there's no Conqueror's Flooded Tutor up. That would be kind of an interesting one. That's probably one they thought about. So a thing you get to do, right, is I have Luris, I have Rog, cast Rog, clamp it, draw 2, cast Rog, clamp it, draw 2. But you get this engine you get to put together. Yeah, so this is a 5-color Luris turbo deck, kind of similar to the Jensen things that we've seen, but this one not trying to do any Hermit Druid stuff, just doing a little bit of synergy with Cloud, what that gets to do with our Luris. So really interesting deck. And I think a lot of times my guess is some of these things like the Cloud synergies and the Luris stuff doesn't come up. It's just a super fast 5-color deck, but this is a really cool one. All right, next we're taking a look at Crick or Kirik or whatever you guys call him. I know that people comment about this deck all the time, but no one ever seems to play it or at least top with it, so I almost never get to cover it. But here we got Crick, Son of Yawgmoth, with a new include, which seems like such a really good card for these, especially kind of more aggressively slanted decks that are all about hitting certain mana thresholds. Tezzeret is just kind of a combo with Mana Vault. It's really powerful both ways, where you get to go land Mana Vault, Tezzeret, untap Vault, or you get to go power out your Tezzeret, get the Mana Vault, play it. Next turn, you get to use it and untap it. It's been really good. It's like in the semi-blue decks. It seems very, very strong in Etali as well. Seems like a good inclusion here. Crick, known for its goofy creature combos that you get to do, doing things like getting an Asmodeus into your graveyard while you have a Necrotic Ooze, so that you get to just spend 6 life to draw 7 cards. Usually will win you the game. Gets to like put together Balthor piles and reanimating stuff out of the yard, getting your Hoarding Broodlord, your Villuses, your Razaketh, really powerful creature-oriented stuff. Very powerful with Scourge Familiar as well as a discard outlet to get that stuff in the graveyard. We've got Blood Pet and Blood Celebrant as mana enablers. Dothy, Bowmasters, Raids, decent value card in these kind of decks. Balthor, which is 2 black, and you can spin triple black, exile them. Each player returns all black and all red creature cards from the graveyard to the battlefield. Entomb something, or you do a Final Parting, or are they on Buried Alive as well, right? Buried Alive, and put all into play and win the game. What is this? Elegy Acolyte. This is a new one. 2 black, lifelink. Whenever one or more creatures you control to come an extra player, draw a card and lose 1 life, and then it has Void. At the beginning of your end step, if an online permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, create a 2/2. Mostly you're playing it for that first Tymna-like effect. Flesh Writher, 2 black, and it has Transfigure, so you can spend 1 black, sacrifice it, search the library for a creature with the same mana value, put it into play, so you get to just go get a 3-drop. Same mana value into play, so you get to search your library, go get a 4-drop. It can be a Vile Entomber, the Necrotic Ooze, Gary, or Grey Merchant of Asphodel is usually your damage outlet. Most of this package is pretty similar to what the Cricks have been doing so far, other than the Tezzeret and the new include in the Acolyte. Sorceries, tutors, Entomb effects. Insatiable Avarice is another Imp Seal kind of effect that you can get extra cards to at a decent life cost, especially if you're doing it with Crick. But any card that is all Crick mana, all black, is pretty nice, especially with an impactful effect like that. Besiege, Final Parting, Beseech the Queen. So another tutor, and then Peer into the Abyss. We're just going all in with Crick. That's what we do. We're here to try to win like turn 2. Down, removal stuff, sacrifice to make some mana, ulcerate as a piece of removal. Anything new around here? Saw in half for our Broodlord, mostly. Vamp Tutor, Bile Blight is another removal spell. You gotta watch out. You gotta play around the Bile Blight if you're gonna run Rograk in the 99 of your decks now. Something to think about, guys. Artifacts. Fast mana and reasonable mana like Everflowing Chalice. Soul Ring, we are not on the Mopal. Springleaf Drum, Jet Medallion, Monolith Ring. Not doing any Bolus's Citadel or Aetherflux Reservoir, none of that kind of stuff. Then enchantments, we've got the Animate Dead effects, Heartless Summoning, which is a pretty cool one. 1 in a black. Creature spells you cast cost 2 less. Creatures you control get -1/-1. You don't really care that much about that. Reducing cards by generic cost, though, is really powerful with Crick. All these 4-drops are just now, 4 life, right? The Flesh Writher, stuff like that. Necromancy, Necropotence, and Pestilence, which is hot. 2 black. No creature on the battlefield, sack it. And then you spin a black, deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. Banger. 34 lands. Pretty high freaking land count. We're on Bazaar of Baghdad, City of Traders, Mishra's Factory. That's a cool one. Lake of the Dead, absolute monster. Nykthos, Phyrexian Tower. No other wild utility stuff. The Mutavault. So getting more, I like the man lands to get more bodies for these like sacrifice type effects. And honestly, having blockers for Crick is nice too. I don't know how much we're going to chump block with our lands. But Crick is a fan favorite deck that probably just doesn't have enough players on it. I do think to some extent, right, if we all jam Crick, the Ristic player can't stop all of us, right? There's only so much interaction. So if we're playing the Cricks and Rog Size and the Jensen, or not Jensen, if we're playing the Cricks and Rog Size and the Ezios, they can't stop all of us. Maybe we just need to be jamming more. And speaking of jamming more, we got Inalla. This is a top 16 full of decks people love to hear me talk about. Hear me get stuff wrong about, at least. They just like hearing about these. These just have such passionate fan bases. So, Inalla, another deck. We don't get to see too much. Creature package. Some familiar faces, right? Known for the Spell Seekers. Ruthless Technomancer lines being a thing. It is also a wizard. I know it doesn't. It has Mancer in the name, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't look like a wizard. So we got those two, which we kind of expect. Bloodline Necromancer, which I think for the most part is a staple, though you don't always see. I've covered a bunch of different types of Inallas at this point. But when that enters, you get to reanimate a wizard. or a vampire. Or a vampire. But yeah, so we got Blood Pet, another little bit of acceleration on turn 1. Ragavan, Snapcaster Mage, another powerful wizard to help you buy back some of those, Entomb, Reanimate style effects. And then Tidal Barracuda. We've seen in the Rock Thras deck, stuff like that. Not many effects in Grixis to shut off the ability for your opponents to cast spells, but Tidal Barracuda is one of them. If you got the mana, if you can Barracuda and still do your Spellseeker line or your Breach or whatever, there's not a lot they can do. And then Scholar of the Ages, which we see at the top end of the Spellseeker lines, which ETBs return 2 instant sorceries from your graveyard to your hand, get back the whatever Burn Offering, Reanimate, keep firing off your combos. There's no Meme Bet here or Praetor's Grasp, but we got the tutors and ritual you might expect, the reanimation pieces, Reanimate, Unearth, Lively Dirge, Persist, and then Finale of Promise, which is part of a lot of the Spellseeker lines, which you'll get it and then recast like the 2 of the 1-drops usually. Unmarked Grave to be an Entomb effect. Step 3 to go get typically our Spellseeker, but we do have other wizards to grab, right? And then 1 wheel. Instance, we got Burn Offering, Offer, Entomb, Essence Flux as Flicker effect. To the Flood Maw, Misstep, Rain of Filth as a ritual, we're on the Days, Born Upon a Wind, Final Fortune. Got Misdirection as a piece of free interaction, no ad nauseum here, Gifts and Intuition. Obviously we can do full breach lines with these things. We also do just get to throw these out at a certain point, and then our deck is like really built to combo with and from the graveyard. So do this on like a turn 2, do an intuition line, and then set up into like a really flexible like turn 3 win where you have access to more material than maybe you would have in just the traditional Spellseeker line. Jeweled Amulet as a little piece of acceleration. Vexing Bauble is really nice because a lot of our main lines, it doesn't hurt them. Soul Ring, Monolith, the rocks. We are in the One Ring. Okay, that's interesting. Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, more reanimation cards. Breach, Necro, Rhystic Mystic. 27 lands. Got the Crystal Vein, City of Traders, Rexian Tower. We are in the Mistrise Village, starting town. Most of the time when I cover these Inalla, sometimes you'll see higher creature counts with more wizard synergy stuff. Sometimes you'll see lower ones. I like the card choices here. I like the Snapcaster. Tidal Barracuda is pretty sick. I'm curious to hear if that actually had an impact there. It is really nice to be able to slam these kind of things if you're going to be jamming into, Rhystics and Mystics. A lot of times too, because this thing also grants flash, it can really help with like they do it and they besage you your breach or whatever when you're Tidal Barracuding. A lot of times you're supposed to set, like if I'm doing a breach and I'm just behind a piece like this and I'm jamming into Rhystic, one of the first things I'm going to do is get a flash enabler so that if they do try to besage you me, I can just Born Upon the Wind, counter my own like whatever was on the stack LED, and then restart the line. And then Tidal Barracuda is just both of those things at once, which is really nice. It is just a little scary to pass with. Then we've got Wounded's Rock Thras list. Just on the 1 dork with Birds of Paradise, also on Mockingbird. For the 2 drops, mostly stuff we're used to seeing. Biomancers, Fairy Mastermind, Cloud, Flesh Tube, Breeze Caller, Image. Nantuko, he is on Thundertrap Trainer right now, which is essentially ETB Impulse, but you get a non-creature, non-land. Quite good. Sometimes you'll see this. Sometimes you see Malevolent Rumble as basically bodies that get you extra card selection and have you go up a card. On the Spellskite for protection. Spellskite also has the nice utility of being good into the face of Beseiju because it's a legal target for that card. So if they go to Beseiju your Cradle, you get to Spellskite it. And it's really good into Bowmasters. It takes a lot of triggers. On the Spirit Guide, Bambi, Spellseeker, most of these kind of stapley. Some people are not on Kitten right now. I just think it's better to run good broken cards that everyone's afraid of because they win the game. Clever Impersonator, again, we've seen as an option in a variety of decks. Flexible Clone, Metamorph, Sony Megaspawn, Seedborn, Staples at the top end. Sorceries, we are on Green Sun's Finale, Nature's Rhythm. No Solvin Scrying, but we're on the Chatterstorm to make some tokens and then gamble as well because this is a breach version of the build. We got Pact, Chain. We are on the Louis Suarez Sacrifice. We are on Swan Song here. Noxious Revival as well. We do run Born, which is not like the most popular. Brain Freeze, Psych Rift, Swap out the flares. Is on Force Negation, so it leans a little bit more interactive. MBT on this town ain't big enough for those loops and just being a pretty good card. And Force of Will. Artifacts, we've got Fast Mana, the LED for our Breach line. We are on the map. Are on Mana Vault and Relic of Legends. Some people have opted not to run these. I think once you do, then the One Ring starts to look better, and especially if you're starting to do like more of the Kiora's Follower or just Kiora untap stuff, you want to lean more into the One Ring. So some builds just want that more anyways. And these cards have always been fairly good. People are trying different things out or noticing that they like a dork over Mana Vault and some of the more like pip heavy development focused builds, whatever. And is on Arcane Signet. 8 enchantments with the Mystic, Training Grounds, Earthcraft, Wild Growth, Growing Rights, and Rhystic. as basically all staples. You see these in almost every list at this point. And then, of course, if we're running Breach, we're on Breach. And Song of Creation, pretty popular, explosive teamer win condition, basically. And then Invasion, 28 lands. We got the Dryad, E-Zone, Manamo, is on Gemstone Caverns, which I think most people are, but just Pigeon says it's terrible. Mistrat's Village, Shifting Woodland, Saga is on 2 basics, 1 of each, with Prismatic Vista, and then is on the full suite of duels and the Talon Gates. Then we got our third TNK. This one still, we did see like a bit of a resurgence in DRC this weekend. And I honestly think it had something to do with the Secret Lair one because it's really, really cool. I think a lot of people were swayed by the art being cool. And also, I think the card is still pretty good. 1 drops we expect, Fairy Mastermind. We are on the Delny here. We got Delny, Facebreaker, and like Mastermind. These all line up super well. Like Delny just looks really great in this, kind of more slowed down mid-rangey format. Ranger Captain, Valley Floodcaller. This is getting pretty close to what the standard looked like this past weekend. A lot of the decks at the Envy looked like this with Facebreaker, Delny. Some of them had Mayhem Devil. Most, I think, had Mastermind. I'd have to double check, but at least the ones I looked at. Sorceries, we're again seeing no meme bet, but this time it is on the Praetor's Grasp and is on a wheel. The Tutors, Sevrek, Gamble, Rite of Flame. Instants offer your Black Rituals, Consultation. Flood Maw was very popular. Snapback, another card we saw more of in the Envy, that the DRC, stuff like that, and like Flare Dupe we've seen in like the Trimnic style builds. We are nosing. No gifts this time is on Intuition. 12 artifacts. We got Rocks, Fast Mana, Grinding Station, having a really big weekend in general, but especially in TNK decks, just realizing we really like winning with Breach. Let's just add another thing that does that. And then Wishclaw, Imposter Mech, and then in 5 enchantments, Tithe, Rhystic, Necro, the staple ones that are busted, and then is on City of Traders here, Cavern, no Surveillance, but is on Starting Town. Then we got a really cool one. I really like any deck that gets to run Tyvar, basically. But we're playing Abzan with Tymna, Halana. Halana is 3 and a green, reach. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. When you do, that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. Enabler for killing stuff, obviously. It's kind of mana intensive. But the thing Halana is most known for is being again, relatively expensive, but is a sack outlet for Protean Hulk. You get your Hulk into play, you get a Halana trigger, and then you spend 2 mana and you have Hulk deal 6 damage to itself. Do your Hulk pile. This deck is just cool anyways. I mentioned the Tyvar. We're doing Hulk piles. We got sack outlets like Carrion Feeder, Cauldron Familiar, which I love. When this enters, you drain the table, and then you sack a food, return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. We have Samwise, which is another non-token creature enters. You make a food. You have your sack outlet, so you get to drain the table with Cauldron Familiar, and then a sack outlet and Samwise, which is really sick. Got like 5 mana dorks, Allosaur Shepherd as protection, Esper Sentinel, Forsaken Miner, which is, I think, mostly known for like Rakdos the Muscles. Whenever you commit a crime, you may pay a black. If you do, return this card from graveyard to the battlefield. Maybe we'll have to see what the normal loop is with that. Or it's usually like some kind of thing that when something dies, you target somebody. Like with Vengeful Blood Witch, which is whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, target opponent loses a life. So if you sack this to a Warren Soul Trader, or if we're on like Phyrexian Altar. But basically, we're going to loop targeting our opponents with an ability for Forsaken Miner, seeing that we've committed a crime, paying the black, return to play, boop, 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 boop. Our Viscera Seer is no sack outlet. So in Safekeeper's Protection, Collector Roof for shutting off artifacts, Bloom Tender, Golem, Patient Plotter. When it leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you, and you can spend black, sack a creature, return this creature from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a sack outlet that works in the graveyard. That's pretty sick. Priest of Felrites will let us sacrifice itself and return a creature, and it has Unearth. Boromir as protection. We also have a couple different ways to have the ring tempt us if that comes up. 6, recursive, awesome. Academy Rector will get us our Pattern Rebirth, maybe some other options. Sorceries, Tutors, Chain of Smog to go with that Witherbloom Apprentice. Reanimation pieces, Lively Dirge, Tutor, and Reanimation piece. Buried Alive, search for piles. We might have some flashback stuff in the graveyard as well. I know at least we have the Priest of Felrites, and being able to entomb a Golem to have a sack outlet is really sick. Unmarked Grave, Natural Order, also can get our Protean Hulk, Culling Ritual. I really, really like this deck. Crop Rot, Rituals, Entomb, Legolas's Quick Reflexes for protection. No Naws, not doing any of that. We got the Veil, Eladamri's Call, Worldly Tutor. Just the 5 artifacts. Remember, we are a Collector Roof deck, so just running stuff to help us get ahead. No Birthing Pod, none of that. Enchantments, we got Animate Dead, Survival of the Fittest, which is going to be great in a toolboxy kind of deck like this. Lots of creature combos, Necromancy, and then Pattern Rebirth, like I mentioned, to go get our Protean Hulk. 28 lands. We've got a Cradle, Phyrexian Tower, Shifting Woodland, and that's about it with utility stuff. Really cool. This deck gets to do a lot of stuff that I really like. In general, these kind of creature toolboxy combo overlap decks are pretty awesome. And then our last deck before we get to the top 4, and I promise the last Tymna Kraum we're going to be covering, we've got Esper, Mockingbird, Ragavan, Fairy Mastermind. Not really seeing anything too different. So we get a Polywog Prodigy, which has really not been a popular draw engine this year. We are on the Oppo, which is like not even a staple at this point in TNK. Facebreaker, Flood Color, Voice, Sorceries. We are on the Meme Bet and Praetor's Grasp here. On a Wheel, Beseech. Again on the offer, we're on Dispel, on Lightning Bolt. You basically don't see that one, but here we got Lightning Bolt. It's there for a reason. I don't really know what it is, but it's there. Other than just prioritizing red more in your mana base. Swords, I guess you don't really want to be pathing stuff. Path to Exile doesn't feel great when there's a lot of the creature decks are basic land running Earthcraft decks. Well, on the Lightning Bolt, I don't know what to tell you. Can't hit Planeswalkers too, that can matter. We're on the Psych Rift here. Gifts and Intuition, no Nas again on this one. We're on the Rollick. Artifacts, another Grinding Station. Just that was the move for this weekend, I guess. Grinding Station moving on up. Felwar, Arcane Signet, Wishclaw, Fast Man on your LED. Same 5 enchantments we tend to see. 27 lands this time on the Meticulous Archive and Raucous Theater as Surveil lands. Other than that, just a good 4-color mana base. So yeah, overall, Grinding Station stocks going way up. Nas stocks maybe going down here in the open. And those Facebreaker stocks are also really, really high right now. First up in our top 4, we've got Rocco. If you've been watching the channel, listening to the podcast, you know we've talked about Turbo Rocco as one of the most consistent decks in this format. It is so ridiculously good at getting fast wins. We got Vivian on the hunt for our Birthing Pod style combos. Shepherd, whole bunch of Dorks, all of them really, Lumberjack, all this. We got the Phyrexian Dreadnought, and there's been some confusion on how this works with Rocco as a sacrifice outlet. Phyrexian Dreadnought is mainly here to kill stuff like with our Academy Rector, right? Or Arena Rector, same either way. Cast Rocco for X equals 1, having one of these cards in play. Phyrexian Dreadnought has, when this creature enters, sacrifice it unless you sacrifice any number of creatures with total power 12 or greater. It also isn't other creatures. So you get to Phyrexian Dreadnought ETB eat itself as part of that trigger. It doesn't need to be other creatures, which I guess can be a little confusing. So one thing people can do is in response, bounce or blow up the Dreadnought. If you don't have creatures with total power 12 or greater, you will not be able to sacrifice. Is my understanding of it, at least. Tinderwall, we've got Wirewood Symbiote, pretty common in Rocco to rebounce it. Agate Instigator, 1 in a red with Offspring 1 in a red. When another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. This is going to be an outlet for us. I don't know how necessary it is. One thing it's going to let us do is have very clean, potentially instant speed wins, and then also wins that are post-combat, instead of like requiring the Kiki Jiki line having to go to combat. Archivist of Ogma, Bloom Tinder, Dranith. So we got Frenzied Baloth, which has got a lot of talk, but hasn't really seen that much successful play that I've seen yet. Can't be countered. Trample Haste. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Combat damage can't be prevented. This gets you around the 1 ring, makes all your stuff uncounterable. In lower color decks, it can just be free. It's kind of similar again to like an Allosaurus Shepherd effect or a Destiny Spinner. Ruby is a hasty dork to target Taru to make us some mana. And so what we're here for, right? Wall of Roots, Fabro, Elder, Pelagie, Wayfarer. It's its own mana, right? It's all 5 colors. Multicolored spells you cast have Convoke. This gives you a Rocco Convoke, which is pretty nice. Impercruiter, Bell Ringer can give us some combos with our Kiki Jiki. Squee for our food chain lines. We've got Academy Rector to go get that food chain, and Arena Rector to go get our Vivian. Then we have our Kiki, Felidar Guardian, Karmic Guide combo lines for the full pod thing. And then Trajan's Ogre to make us some mana. Sorceries, ways to make mana and tutors. Metamorphosis to sack a creature. Plunge, do the same thing. Last chance, take an extra turn. I know one Rocco I covered was on last chance and no Final Fortune for some reason. We got it here. Instance, we got Angel's Grace, which is really fallen out of favor because people realize it does not work most of the time. Unless there's like, they've already exiled their library and Thoracle triggers on the stack. They try to breach you or whatever. Almost everything gets around this. But to just help you survive against quick win attempts, it can be nice. And the damage-based win cons too. Crop Rot, Tutor, Lightning Bolt here, Quick Reflexes, Noxious. On the 1 blast is on Pyretic Ritual for some more mana. Out Army's Call. So we got Flare Fortitude, which sacrifice a white creature, going to turn your life total can't change, permanent you control. So you can like sack your Rocco, protect your stuff, and you get to pass these and have a free sack outlet. Another powerful thing about like Infernal Plunge and Metamorphosis. 8 artifacts, including the Birthing Pod, and the rest just being mana. 3 enchantments. We got the Carpet of Flowers, Sylvan Library to get some card draw, and then Food Chain to combo off with our Rocco. 27 lands. We got Brushland, Gaia's Cradle, lots of the Pain lands. High Market is a sack outlet. Not running the, Lazotep Quarry, which is similar to the High Market. And we are on Shifting Woodland. So Turbo Rocco, a hyper consistent deck. If you're interested in anything similar looking to this, and you just want to grind and get wins, this is a great option for you. Then we're taking a look at Dexter's Rogsai list. Creatures, the 6 that you kind of expect with Rogsai. There's been a little bit more experimenting. Some people are running VV, stuff like that, but here we got Thoracle, Bowmaster, Dragavan, Rear Guide, Flood Caller, what you normally expect. So on the sorceries, we do have the Git Probe and the Demonic Council. Probably the one standing out here that doesn't always pop up is Grim Tutor. We are on both the sorcery speed extra turn effects, triple wheels. Most of this being kind of standard-ish now. Demonic Council will definitely become a bit of a staple in these kind of decks. So on the Brainstorm, we've talked about this before. That alongside Chromatic Star was kind of like Citadel tech. One thing it does is when you have a decent hand size, it does let you functionally kind of ancestral recall to find more action. It also lets you crack top deck tutors. Same thing with the Chromatic Star. You know, you're not really having time on your side in this kind of deck, and being able to imp seal into win attempt immediately. Cast Brainstorm, crack Utility, holding priority, get your win attempt is really, really nice to just be able to get through that. Skipping ahead a little bit, but the Chromatic Star, mana fixing, cracking top deck tutors, being an artifact in play, kind of nice. We are on the Into the Flood Maw, which is purely reactive, unlike, you know, like a Chain of Vapor. It's usually a ritual. 2 red blast, you're on the Rain of Filth, Snap, Daze, no Force of Negation. We are on the Nas, of course, MBT, Red Flare, SWAT, Fierce, no Deadly Rollick. 19 artifacts, including that Chromatic Star I mentioned. Also on Vexing Bauble, I've mentioned it a couple times. It's just broken here. Grinding Station, also same deal. I see some Rogs not play it. It's fantastic. Defense Grid is another option to protect yourself. No Wondering is on the 5 enchantments you kind of expect. Some people have been playing Copy Enchantment or Steel Enchantment instead of Necrodom, but here we got the 2 Necros. And then 22 lands. I did see that he said he might go up a land. I think he said he had a multi-2 like twice in this event. But we got the Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, Phyrexian Tower, no Surveil land. Good clean mana base. Yeah, Rogsai did get it done. Classic, no newness, no wrong sign, none of that. Just good old-fashioned Grixis Turbo. And then in maybe the most impressive feat we've seen in a large event like this is Lotho getting top 4. Not a deck that has been super common in cEDH. Pretty much everyone acknowledges, like, I know immediately I was like, Lotho's broken. But Orzhov traditionally really struggles out the command zone. Well, Orzhov traditionally really struggles because of its lack of blue is the first thing, but combos in Orzhov have been weird. The card quality has been iffy. Modern Horizon sets and stuff like that, of course, have helped bolster it, so we'll get to see kind of what they're doing. But traditionally, low color, especially like white decks, doesn't tend to do that well consistently, but we got this here with a pretty nice record going into top 4. So in the creatures, we got 21, which is a lot. Esper, Saracen, Archivist, Dothy, Dranith, Thelia, flicker value on stuff like our Solitude. So it looks like we are a turbo, well, maybe not turbo yet, but we are an Abdel Adrian combo deck. We're going to be doing Animate Dead stuff. That's kind of traditionally, at least right now, the best Orzhov combo. We got Hoarding Broodlord for Broodlord lines. Priest of Felrights to reanimate stuff. Voice Aven Interrupter as a counterspell that we get access to in pure white. Augur Trawler, which is a decent utility on an MDFC. So we got Benny Brax, which is Convoke. And at the beginning of each end step, if you create a token this turn, draw a card. So it's going to help turn our Lotho into a draw engine, which is really nice. Drawn in Linvala, great creature hate, demolishes those Thrasios decks, takes all the activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control. Witch Enchanter, Abdel, Solitude, nice interaction. Wandering Archaic, pretty good value in a deck that's going to be able to make some mana, right? And then Hoarding Broodlord, probably going to help us put those combo lines together. Sorceries, all black cards, Reanimation, Tutors, Entomb effects. Lots of those this event, lots of graveyard stuff. Beseech the Mirror, and then Final Parting. Search for 2 cards, put 1 in your hand, 1 in the graveyard. I think this was the MVP of the event, the thing that won the top 4, but not for this player. We'll get there. But I really liked the graveyard stuff that we've been seeing going on. We got Slaughter Pack, love it. Dispatch, which is a Metalcraft Swords to Plowshares. Enlightened Tutor, Entomb. We got Sacrifice, great with your Broodlord stuff. Swords, Silence, Saw in Half. Baleful Mastery, which is like anti-Thoracle tech. Makes your opponents draw a card. And there's also removal. 17 artifacts. We got the Mamber. Amazing Mamber deck with Lotho, right? Busted. Chrome Mox, Mopal, Mantle. Your Metalcraft stuff's going to be online a lot. Conqueror's Flood is another effect like that. I really like Apple of Eden because we're so likely to just keep making a bunch of treasures and just have lots of mana lying around and get to turn that into something of a win with our, opponents who are likely going to have a little bit higher card quality than us. The Wondering, Wishclaw, Talismans, and then enchantments. So we've got the Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, Necromancy. These alongside Abdel Adrian are going to let us create infinite creature soldiers, and then we can also get infinite ETBs of some of the permanents that are in play. Net Infinite Mana. Ripples of Undeath is a decent value engine. Caretaker's Talent, which is 2 and a white. Whenever one or more tokens you control enter, draw a card. That's already really good with Lotho. This ability triggers only once each turn, and then you can spend a white, level it up, create a token that's a copy of target token you control, and then 3 and a white, level it up, buff your creature tokens. Really, you just want it for that make a token draw card effect, which is very nice. Then we got Touch, Smothering Tithe, and Trouble in Pairs is a nice value engine. 27 lands, so you get lots of utility stuff because you are in just 2 colors. And Lotho is going to really help you color fix. Forbidden Orchard in a 2-color deck seems a little unnecessary, but I'm trusting them. But this is a Cradle event. Basically. Fomori Vault also seems awesome here. Shadowy Backstreet, Talon Gates, Starting Town, Silent Climb. Yeah, I really like the mana base for the most part too. Really cool to see a deck like this. I know this deck specifically got memed on a lot because I think not necessarily because it's bad or was bad when it was kind of getting showcased a lot, which, Wars Off people are going to be questionable about. Really, it was that it got shoved in people's faces, like 50 playing with power videos in a row, which is just gonna be annoying in general. But I do like the kind of like sticking with it, the perseverance, like a lot of new tools that this deck have got, right? Like a lot of these cards that come out in the last year, especially if you go back like 2 years, like most of these cards that are really impactful come from the last couple years. We've gotten so many good creatures and so many good options, and it is cool to see somebody take a deck like this and just really pilot it and get success at the highest level. I think it's awesome. But the winner of our event, slamming an Etali turn 2 and getting a win, is Etali, a deck that has been on the rise here lately. We're just getting more and more options, like I mentioned. New cards like Chandra. People have been kind of cleaning it up a little bit, focusing in more, running more of the naturalized effects, stuff like that. More people working on it, and it is just really cooking people. This deck gets an Etali on the board so consistently fast, and they just keep printing new ways to get extra Etali triggers and make new copies of it, and it just keeps on giving. It just keeps on getting better. First standout here is we have Minskin Boo, which is not really a staple of this deck, but is pretty strong in these colors, is a pretty good value engine. It does also let you sacrifice your Etali, which can be quite nice if you just have lots of mana lying around. Like if you go Minskin Boo plus it, whatever, minus it, get rid of your Etali after you net a bunch of mana, whatever. Has decent utility, can draw you a million cards. We've got Mana Dorks, Tinderwall, Ragavan, all these stuff to make mana. Reckless Barbarian, the Sticker Goblin, Bergie, Spirit Guide. New kind of dork that we got access to is Evendo, Brush Razor, which is a 3-mana 2/2. Whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, as long as you sacrifice a non-token permanent this turn, you may play cards exile with this creature, and then you can tap it, sack a land, add double red. Pretty good turn 1, turn 2 option to help you accelerate into your Etali, get you some card advantage. This is a thing you just do decently frequently. Really notable interaction with this card that probably comes up and gets played wrong is the legend rule is not a sacrifice. So if you make a token copy of Etali and you choose to sacrifice the original to the legend rule, that's not a sacrifice, it's just put in the graveyard, so it does not trigger this. Rules mistake that I imagine will come up. I've seen Rakdos the Muscle player and Dargo players not understand or not know that that's how the legend rule works. Not a real sacrifice. Hunting Velociraptor cheat into play. We've got the Squeak for our food chaining, Imp Recruiter, and then stuff to help us do extra Etalis, right? Like the Jaxis, Roaming Throne, Rionia, Hellkite Courser, Emrakul, which has been a sick payoff for an Etali flip. If you can set it up and can just cast it, you make a bunch of mana, turn through your deck. Treasonous Ogre, probably the MVP of this deck, being able to slam an early Etali. Just need 4 mana and get your Treasonous Ogre and then pay your 21 life. You got an Etali. Sorceries, bunch of sources of mana and ways to get more Etalis. That's like all this is, and gamble and wheel. Because the Twin Flame, Molten Dupe, Electro Dupe, Heat Shimmer, all getting you extra Etalis. Metamorphosis, getting you mana either into or out of your Etali. Geosurge, popped up a bunch more. 4 mana, gets you 7 mana. That's so many red pips, it's hard to read. Yeah, another thing that turns 4 mana into Etali. This deck is just cracked right now. So instance, we got the Emerald Charm, which can net you some mana. A lot of the decks have moved away from like Cradle stuff, but it can just untap like a Mana Vault or something, or it can blow up a Rhystic Study. It's the other main use for it. Guttural Response, counter target blue instant, Nature's Claim, and then we got the Red Blast, Desperate Ritual, Manamorphose, more rituals. Delay Blast Fireball leans a little reactive for an Etali, and it doesn't get rid of draw engines, but can just help clean up the board, keep you alive. And then Open the Omen Pass, which is 2 in a red, and you choose one, add 2 mana of any one color and 2 mana of any other color to only cast creatures or enchantments, or another mode you're almost never going to pick. So it's 2 in a red to like add double red, double green and then it can only be spent to cast creatures. So it's only netting you a mana, but it's instant speed, decent one to flip into out of Etali. It's okay to keep you going, and it is really cool that it lets you both cast creatures or enchantments because as can tend to happen, you slam the Etali and then you find a way to get the food chain, and this can, like if this is your flip, get you the mana and use it to cast food chain. More rituals, and then Eldrazi Confluence, hard to cast. Really, really good though. And Pyrokinesis. So a couple options just to help you kind of stay alive, not fully greeting it on Etali, right? Fast mana, normal mana rocks, Cloudstone Curio to get infinite mana with Goblin, or do, extra Etalis, Curse Mirror being another one, and then is on the One Ring. Enchantments, just Sylvan Library, Underworld Breach, and Food Chain. And then we got 29 lands, Ancient Tomb, Crystal Vein, City of Traders around the district. We are on the Guy's Cradle on this one, which, our creature count's pretty high, right? 22. Can just be awkward in those developmental turns. Pretty much every land that gets to come into play untapped, and then we also run Shifting Woodland, basic mountain, basic forest. Yeah, Etali, your winner for the Steel City Spectacular, 20k on turn 2 nonetheless. Let me know down below what you think of this tournament. I know lots of people were comparing this to the Envy and saying, well, this has much more diversity, so this is the real event. The other one is just all TNK players. That one doesn't count. I think they both count a little bit. Like I mentioned at the start, I would like to see an event like this that also has all the best players in it to really get a good feel for it. Either way, just seeing a 500 plus player cEDH event get to fire is mind blowing. When I started this channel, that was not even beginning to be in the cards, but it's something I hoped and kind of expected to get to see eventually one day, and it's really cool that it got to happen. And we got to really see a pretty cool looking diverse layout for this event, right? It's not like all these players just got crazy lucky and it's just because of X, Y, and Z and blah 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 and it's cope. They just showed up and played a whole bunch of rounds and did. Look at this Etali, 6-4. They're killing it. Really awesome, really high wins, especially compare this to the Envy, right? Lots of players are going to be higher wins, but you're not getting your 1 win and 5 6 draws and getting into here. You got to get in here and get some dubs. I really liked it, and it's really awesome to see. So thank you so much for watching, and as always, go play cEDH. Have a good one, everybody.